Today we are in week 3, the third and final week of a sermon series entitled The Power of Habit. The Power of Habit. And the big idea behind this series is that people change, not so much because they were born with an extraordinary amount of discipline, but because they develop strong habits that carry them through when their willpower fails. That's why it's so important that as Christians we're intentional about developing strong and healthy habits in our lives. Just to recap, in week 1 we talked about the power of daily Bible reading. We said whether we realize it or not, all of us right now have thousands of things we need to stop doing and thousands of things we need to start doing to become more like Jesus. But the best starting place is very simply to develop the habit of daily Bible reading. The Bible is living and active. As you read it, it's going to change you. This one healthy habit will lead to other healthy habits in your life. And then last week in week 2, we talked about the power of consistent prayer. We took a look at a guy by the name of Daniel. Daniel developed the habit of prayer, and even when faced with death, he refused to stop. We said consistent prayer will lead to strength, to intimacy, to clarity, to deliverance, and to breakthrough. That brings us to our final week. If you want to write it down, today we're going to talk about the power of Christian friends. The power of Christian friends. Let's start with the Bible. In Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20, it says this: "Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." This is applicable for the youngest children all the way to the oldest adults. I've heard it put many different ways. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You are who you surround yourself with. Or my favorite of them all, you're the average of your 5 closest friends. And I'll prove it to you. Right now, write down or in your head envision your 5 closest friends. Odds are, professionally, you're not the most successful, but you're also not the least successful. Morally, you're probably not the best, but you're probably not the worst. Spiritually, you're probably not the closest to God, but you're also not the furthest from God. Physically, you're not in the best shape, but you're also not in the worst shape. Odds are you are the average of your 5 closest friends. Here's the bottom line. The people we surround ourselves with are friends. They either set us up for success or they set us up for failure. And before we really get into this message, I want to stop and I want to clarify one thing. Because when it comes to the topic I'm preaching on this morning, I think there's 2 major extremes that many Christians tend to lean toward. And neither of these extremes are biblical. The first extreme is the people way over here. They feel like they have to live in a bubble. I'll give you an example. Several years back, I got sick. I rarely get sick, but I got sick, like deathly sick. I was planning my funeral. I thought my life was over. At the time, my wife Molly was extremely pregnant. Our son Knox wasn't even 2 years old. So the last thing I wanted to do was to get them sick. So what did I do? I quarantined myself from the rest of my family. I locked myself in a room and I seriously didn't come out for 3 days. The Christians that fall into this category, they quarantine themselves from unbelievers. They hear sermons on evangelism. The pastor encourages them to share their faith with their non-Christian friends, and they think to themselves, well, I guess this one doesn't apply to me because I don't have any non-Christian friends. This person, they see someone else smoking a cigarette, and they never associate with that person again. They hear someone say the S word, and by S word I mean shut up, and they completely cut that person out of their life. This person is a modern day Pharisee. They have a holier than thou attitude. They have good intentions but bad execution. They don't want to put themselves in a compromising situation. They don't want to be negatively influenced. But what happens is they neglect to do the very thing God has commissioned and called them to do, which is to love their neighbor and to share the gospel. And then we have the other extreme, which is the people way over here. These people never talk about how Jesus intentionally surrounded himself with 12 disciples. But they always talk about how Jesus hung out with the sinners and the tax collectors. They use it to justify the fact that they don't have any Christian friends. They use it to justify the fact that they rarely, maybe never participate in a church. People who fall into this category say things like this: the church is nothing but a bunch of hypocritical, judgmental people. I'm a Christian. I don't really need the church. The people that fall into this category, I call them undercover Christians. And they do a good job fooling everyone because they in no way resemble a Christian. Again, good intentions, bad execution. They want to love everyone. They want to reach people far from God. They want to be real. They want to be genuine. But those people usually have more of an influence on them than they have on those people. So two extremes. People over here quarantine themselves from non-Christians. People over here quarantine themselves from the church. This isn't biblical. This isn't biblical. What's biblical lies somewhere in between. I will always strive to love all people regardless of the lifestyle they live with the unconditional love of Jesus Christ. But I won't allow people to distract me from God's plan or to continually tempt me to sin. One more time. This isn't biblical. This isn't biblical. What's biblical lies somewhere in between. I will always strive to love all people regardless of the lifestyle they live with the unconditional love of Jesus Christ. But I will not allow people to distract me from God's plan or to continually tempt me to sin. When I first got saved, I had no Christian friends. Not a single Christian friend that I can recall. My friends were far from God. I didn't block their phone numbers. I didn't delete them from social media. I didn't cut them out of my life and pretend that they were dead. No, I continued to love them. I continued to be their friend. I continued to hang out with them. But I was very careful. I tried not to put myself in a situation where they would be more of an influence on me than I would be on them. I didn't go out with them in large groups. I made sure I wasn't outnumbered. I made sure I wasn't the only Christian in the group. I was far too weak for that. Instead, I invited them to come to church. I invited them to come to small group. I invited them to hang out one-on-one. I invited them into my setting. So the relationship didn't end, but the relationship definitely did change. We have to be careful about falling into one of these two extremes. We're talking about Christian friends. We're talking about surrounding ourselves with the right people. But don't quarantine yourself from unbelievers, the very people God has called you to reach. And don't quarantine yourself from the church because there's a few hypocritical, judgmental people. God makes it clear you desperately need the church. If you want to follow along on the screens, today I want to read a passage from Acts chapter 2. And as I read this passage, I want you to pay careful attention to the dynamics of the early church. Here's what it says, picking up in verse 42. And they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. And awe came upon every soul. And many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And day by day attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes. And they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. So in Acts chapter 2, these aren't just a bunch of people doing church together. These aren't people that are just sitting together and serving together on Sunday morning. These are people who are doing life together. They had all things in common. They were united. They were together. They were operating and functioning as a body. Just the way God intended for His church to operate and to function. And as a result of their closeness, as a result of this unity, God is adding to their number day by day those who are being saved. Unfortunately, the modern day church looks a lot different than the early day church. Statistics tell us the average American adult hasn't made a new friend in 5 years. The average American adult hasn't made a new friend in 5 years. I think there's a couple reasons why this is. First, today, in 2020, we have modern conveniences. We have air conditioning, we have heat. We not only have colored flat screen TVs, we have big screen TVs. The average TV size over the last 20 years has went from around 20 inches to around 50 inches. We have the internet, we have social media, we have online dating, we have garage door openers. We don't even have to step foot outside to get into our vehicles. Rewind however many years ago, people didn't have all of these conveniences at their disposal. They got bored. So they went out and they did stuff. They socialized. They met new people. They weren't hiding behind screens. Over the last 20, 30, 40 years, our houses have gotten bigger. Our friend circles have gotten smaller. The second reason I think this is, we're so busy. We're working more hours than ever before, probably trying to pay for all of those modern conveniences that we just talked about. And with more stuff comes more maintenance and more responsibility. So when we're not working to pay for our stuff, we're working to maintain our stuff. Kids are playing 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 sports. We're running around 110 miles per hour. If our schedules aren't full, if we're not stressed and overwhelmed to the max, we must be doing something wrong. We're too busy to make friends. And I could go on and on and on. We can blame it on conveniences. We can blame it on busyness. We can blame it on whatever we want. We can make all the excuses in the world. We can push back on this. We can say, well, times were different back in the Bible days. The people in Acts chapter 2, they lived much simpler lives than we do today. Maybe so. But here's what I think. You might disagree. That's okay. I think it's not that the times have changed. It's that hearts and priorities have changed. People just do not value friendship and community like they once did. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You are who you surround yourself with. You're the average of your 5 closest friends. Today I want to show you the power of Christian friends by sharing with you 3 characteristics of Christian friends. The first characteristic, number 1, Christian friends make you better. Christian friends make you better. Proverbs chapter 27 verse 17 says, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. I don't know about you, but I have some friends that are a heck of a lot of fun to be around. I mean, if I go out with them, a good time is guaranteed. But that doesn't mean they're good for me. That doesn't mean they help me in my walk with the Lord. That doesn't mean that they make me better. I think a lot of times we pick our friends, we choose who we want to spend our time with based on how they make us feel. Well, this person is fun to be around. This person makes me feel good about myself. This person makes me laugh. I have a lot of similar interests with this person. And those obviously aren't bad things. But when picking friends, when choosing friends, I think our first priority should be finding friends who bring out the best in us. I have this one friend. Several years ago, he introduced me to this guy by the name of Dave Ramsey. If you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, he's a real big finance guy. This friend recommended books for me to read and podcasts for me to listen to. At this time, Molly and I just got married. So the information he gave us, it helped us avoid making a lot of financial mistakes. It helped us fix a lot of financial mistakes that we had already made. I still bump into this friend from time to time, and we almost always talk about finances. How are you doing? Have you paid off all of your debt? What are you investing in? This friend has helped me, whether he realizes it or not, a lot. He made me better. I have this other friend shortly after high school. He got really into working out. I mean, he was going to the gym every day. He's taking supplements. He's eating protein like it's candy. And when I was in high school, I worked out to stay in shape for wrestling. But when wrestling was over, I quit. There was a period of about 2 years where I never worked out. I shriveled down to nothing. I lost a lot of my strength. And this friend came to me and he invited me to go to the gym with him. And I said no. But he was persistent. He stayed on me. You need to get back in the gym. Just come with me one time. Here we are 10 years later. And I can count on one hand how many weeks I have missed in the gym since then. This friend motivated me to start working out. He motivated me to get back in shape. He made me better. I remember when I first met my wife, Molly. I was mixed up in all kinds of stuff I shouldn't have been mixed up in. I was partying, mixed up in the wrong crowd. I remember my first year of college, I made straight C's. I barely got by. And then she came into my life and things started to turn around. I stopped partying. I stopped doing a bunch of stuff I shouldn't have been doing. I started studying. I opened a book for the first time in my life. I got my grades up. I got a better job. Eventually I got in church. I got saved. I got baptized. I entered into the ministry. She made me better. And still to this day, she's making me a better person. Christian friends have a way of bringing out our best. Your neighbors, your coworkers, your golf buddies, the other moms on your kids' baseball team, if they don't inspire you to grow, it's probably time to reevaluate. Christian friends make you better. The second characteristic of Christian friends, number 2. Christian friends help you find strength. Christian friends help you find strength. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 14 says, "And we urge you, brothers, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with them all." You know, life has a way of beating you up. It's amazing how quickly things can change from day to day. One day you can feel like you're on top of the world. The next day you can find yourself in a very low place. I don't care who you are. I don't care how strong you are. There are days you feel defeated, days you feel discouraged, days your goals seem far-fetched and out of reach, days you doubt and question everything. That's why it's so important that you have people in your life who come alongside you and encourage you. People who help you find strength when you need it the most. Life has a way of tearing you down. That's why you need friends who have a way of building you up. I work with a couple hundred people on a weekly basis. And the harsh reality is, in the church world, there has never been a time and there never will be a time where everybody is happy with everything. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. I go through challenging seasons. I go through seasons where I can't sleep. I go through seasons where I just want to quit. And to be honest with you, I would have already quit multiple times if it weren't for Christian friends. I can't tell you how many times I've picked up the phone and called someone and said, "Look, I just need someone to talk to." I go and I talk to them for an hour or two. They don't have time to talk. I make absolutely no sense. I repeat myself 30 times, but they sit there and listen. They sit there and let me vent. And then when I get done, they just encourage me. They remind me it's only a season. They remind me the loudest usually don't represent the majority. I can't tell you how many times somebody has noticed something in my life. Maybe they knew I was going through a difficult season, and they've come to me, they've called me, they've sent me a text message that just said, "I support you, I'm behind you." And I could honestly never put into words how much that means to me. I'm so thankful that God has placed people in my life who build me up, people who strengthen me. We all have plenty of friends around us when life is good. But when you go through the most difficult seasons in your life, pay attention to who's by your side. When you're hurting, when you're discouraged, when you lose sight, pay attention to the ones that are there to help you, to encourage you, to build you up. When you fall down, pay attention to the ones that are there to help you up. When you're all alone, pay attention to the ones that are there to comfort you. Those are the friends you want to surround yourself with. Christian friends make you better. Christian friends help you find strength. And number 3, the third characteristic, Christian friends tell you the truth. Christian friends tell you the truth. Proverbs chapter 27, verse 5 and verse 6, it says this: "Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend." I'm going to read it one more time because somebody needs to hear it. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. As a pastor, I've been asked a few times, what's the last thing you do before you preach? Like before you get up on stage and preach, what's the very last thing that you do? And I think people expect a real spiritual answer, like I say a prayer, or I quickly recite some scripture, or I read a verse. And I do all those things. I get up on Sunday morning, I read my Bible, I pray, I look at my notes, I run through the message, I get in the car, I go to the store, I buy an energy drink, and I come to church. That's my Sunday morning routine every single week. But the very last thing I do before I preach, really two things that I do simultaneously. I do these as they're finishing the song right before I get up to preach. Two things. The first thing I do, I check my nose. I make sure nothing's hanging out, if you know what I'm saying. The second thing, I look down and I make sure that my fly is zipped up. I don't care who you are. We've all had this experience before. You were out somewhere important. You were talking. You were socializing with people. You were having a great time. And then you went into the bathroom and you looked in the mirror and there was something on the outside of your nose that should have been on the inside of your nose. It's extremely embarrassing. And I don't know about women, but men, we've all had this experience. You were somewhere important, maybe out on a date, maybe a job interview, maybe an important meeting. You were talking, you were socializing, you were mingling, and then afterward you looked down and noticed the barn door was open the entire time. Again, it's extremely embarrassing. And every time either of those things happen to me, I wonder how many people noticed and didn't tell me. Like if one person would have told me the truth, they could have saved me a whole lot of embarrassment. But a lot of times, it's easier to avoid the truth than to tell the truth. Because sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes the truth is messy. Sometimes the truth is confrontational. Listen to this. Fake friends tell you what you want to hear. Real friends tell you what you need to hear. Real friends tell you the truth because they want what's best for you. I'll give you an example. Over the years, I've worked with countless couples that are having struggles and problems in their marriage. And I've noticed one thing. This is something I don't have proof to back up other than my own personal experience. I don't care what the reports say. I don't care what the experts say. I believe the number one cause of divorce is that one or both spouses is surrounded by the wrong friends. Friends that tell them what they want to hear. Friends that influence them the wrong way. Friends that say things like, you deserve better, or the grass is greener on the other side. Friends that have probably been divorced themselves, and since they're hurting and miserable, they want to bring someone else down with them. Think about it. Very rarely, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, very rarely will you see a couple get divorced that is intentional about surrounding themselves with other godly Christian couples and friends. Very, very rarely will you see that happen. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes the truth stings. You may get upset. You may get angry. But if you have a friend that is willing to tell you the truth, if you have a friend that cares more about your future than your feelings, that's a friend worth keeping. The power of Christian friends. Christian friends make you better. Christian friends help you find strength. Christian friends tell you the truth. Here in the final week of a sermon series all about habits, I want to encourage you to get more involved in the church. I want to encourage you to start coming to a Sunday school class. I want to encourage you to join a connect group. I want to encourage you to begin serving in one of our various ministries. I want to encourage you to take someone out for a cup of coffee. I want to encourage you to invite someone over to your house for supper. Do whatever you have to do to make a habit of surrounding yourself with the right people. Because here's the thing. If you're not intentional about surrounding yourself with the right people, you will unintentionally surround yourself with the wrong people. Show me your friends. I'll show you your future. You are who you surround yourself with. You're the average of your 5 closest friends. Let's stand and sing.